right now, it's looking like it's the right way to go. We seem to be traveling faster than the main lanes.
They didn't increase their days payable outstanding to suppliers. It's not like someone's holding the bag. And if channel inventory was the same for a quarter.
A lot of times when the navigation systems are telling us to get off here, it's actually sometimes much slower than the main lanes.
These numbers are not necessarily comparable. You gotta look.
Now, only because I'm human, I know that it's better to go into this lane to the right of us, because this is the first merge lane onto the Gardner Expressway main lanes, and therefore backs up really deep. And if we were in the next lane to the right of us, we would be bypassing a lot of these cars that are going to be backed up in this lane, and we'd be merging much further ahead. But that would require a soft intervention, and I think we have 3 interventions too many already. This is what I'm talking about. I would have been over there behind that other white Tesla.
I just don't think. I think this was, the way the photo was taken obviously didn't look as classic as it usually does.
If it signals to get over left, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to do a soft intervention by hitting the signal stop.
But isn't this what a lot of Instagram models?
Yeah, like that. Because there's no reason to go over into that lane right now. It's better if we just go on to Lakeshore from here.
So maybe Optimus is
Oh, maybe not.
Oh my, now we're up to something.
Maybe not. Is that what it was? FSD was seeing the emergency lights? That was nice. I thought we were good to go. Huh. Okay, FSD, I was impressed by that one. So that was an unnecessary soft intervention. Not FSD's fault. Nice smooth exit off the mainway. Now again, because I'm human, I do know that getting into the next right lane usually gets us to bypass some of this traffic in the lane I'm in, and then allows us to go right one more lane and actually condense the trip by moving along much quicker. Oh. Is it hearing me now? Have they instituted the large language models already?
The lease is the lease issue of it. I actually, the day they released the Cybertruck lease, I got one because I like to have leases, and it allowed me to put it on a company, and that allowed us to have the 7,500.
I actually
so there were a couple of reasons that made the lease
like
more
that.
attractive than
That
financing
was impressive.
buying out cash. I just don't want to buy out cash because I want to sell any of my Tesla stock, so that was straight away not an option. So
and it didn't go totally stupid and
what happened
mess
with
up
the leases?
that
Me,
car.
Kevin, Doc, whatever his name is, I still don't remember. A couple of us ordered the Cybertruck the same week, and I must have been the only one doing it on lease. And all of them got them the next week, while my
referral credit that is given. Guess what? I mean, just go look at some of the stuff.
Okay, does it go into the right lane?
Service. I'm not complaining, but like my winter wheel swap used to be $80 to swap my wheels, and now it's $167. It's changed like that over the last year. Tesla should be doing this. There's inflation. There's things are going up, and they should be charging more for certain things. The point is they are offering in terms of what these spiffs are 18 days or 19 days, even if they had 25.
See, as a human, we know, because if I go into this far left lane, it becomes 2 turning lanes, but the second turning lane goes straight as well. So that might have helped me to get right past all of this stuff. Because so many people are turning left, the first lane is always congested.
On the COG side, I always question people on this, like they're trying to, I mean, it's great. They have a model and they try to do it by quarter.
You'll see what I mean here. So in this lane, you'll be passing all of these cars that were stuck here.
They don't know their COGs until the very end as well. There's so many puts and takes that happen at the end. It's okay to track on the outside, but I like kind of more looking at kind of the longer term trajectory and like, what are they doing strategically with model size, with volume per SKU? What are they doing with localization around the factories? Those are the real things that'll tell.
So those are the little benefits of being a human being over being an AI entity at this moment.
So guess what? They're sitting on a shit ton of inventory. That's why they actually had to do that. So anyway, long answer.
just jump in and say, the thing that I really like about the incentives that Tesla's introducing are, the supercharging.
I'm jealous.
Very low cost thing that they can throw in there. I mean, the actual cost.
Guy coming up on me on 2 wheels.
But I think the thing that's nice about it is it gets consumers thinking about, range and where are all the superchargers. I think we're at this moment right now where so many people have this range anxiety that we all know is completely blown out of proportion. But when they start actually doing the research on supercharging and, what it would actually cost, that's going to be helpful in just kind of alleviating that as a concern. The thing that I'm more excited about is the free FSD trial.
I'm going to guess it's a BMW.
People like it, they realize how good it is, and they decide to subscribe.
Because of the really strange-looking lights.
So you can actually
It is. It's a BMW GS. Probably a GS 600.
FSD take rate is high enough that you could absolutely do that with a free subscription for a while. Just look, as long as the conversion rates are reasonably known, you have some idea of how long they turn out, kind of generate like a lifetime value model of that FSD.
He's freezing cold too because he's in jeans. And in jeans, the temperature is 10 degrees cooler than I have. So I have 6 degrees. It's minus 4 degrees Celsius on his bike. And he's in jeans.
I mean, I'm 50, you don't want to say.
Not Kevlar.
Actually, he would do that. I don't think I'd listen. He would do that. He would do that. Don't tell him. But I was actually thinking about, how I will get dressed.
Very premature on this lane change, considering we were traveling in the middle lane. But, hey, there could be a reason up ahead that I'm not yet aware of that another Tesla has passed through. Let's find it. It's funny, when friends and family do bring up Tesla in front of, in like 2 people that they know are total Tesla fans, they're doing it semi to ridicule, but also semi to hear any new updates.
Very strong sales numbers.
All right, FSD, you have to get over.
The Chinese are also starting to learn about the tyranny of choice and behavioral economics. They are starting to see
You have to get over.
is the key to success, as Xpeng has also made.
Intervention number 4.
China ever got to himself anyway. So now it is not just
Wow.
Tesla, it's making the old legacy automakers.
That made no sense at all. Why would it keep going straight? You can see this thing is backed up with traffic. We have to be in this left lane to make the turn.
Because Chinese have learned what I've been saying for years, that the key
Now,
to
the one
success
thing that's
is
scaring me,
growth,
folks,
range, architecture.
is that
So,
we were
let's get
supposed to
around
get,
that right in.
well, let me just say it this way. We always get a Christmas surprise, which is usually a majorly improved update with some other extra little perks in it. I'm afraid that Model or AI3 and AI4 vehicles are going to get skipped. And the reason I say this is because version 13 was supposed to be coming out this year. We may miss that. Or maybe AI4 cars are going to get it and AI3s won't get it. Either way, I think that's going to be a really messed up Christmas surprise when everybody's expecting something big to be released to them and they get half a release or no release at all. Wouldn't you figure, eh? 2 Hondas doing the absolute worst at this little juncture. Doing the absolute worst. Crossing over the Chirons and the double solids instead of going back there in the dotted line and actually using that for a transition.
Has been above 1 million.
That is 4 interventions, fairly large interventions. And although, okay, the first one in Burlington, it could have passed the highway entrance and did a U-turn and came back and got on. This one here, it's possible it could have kept going along that middle lane and crossed into this lane that you see here immediately to the right, which brings us into another area of here. It doesn't actually give us the ability to turn on, but it could have cheated and went to the end of that lane and made the left turn, which a little bit dangerous, but if it did it safely. Anyways, I didn't wait to find out, so I intervened.
But no matter what, very quick brand from XP, you have the choice, you can making. And because Tesla has made it very simple, it is also why they can have industry-leading margins on their EVs, even compared to ICE cars, because they built 2 mass models that you can get only in a few configurations and not an endless list of add-ons, as we see with the legacy automakers. And now we're seeing that the Chinese automakers are starting to realize this and simplifying their offering as well. XPeng did see that even though they made a nice EV with the G9, they had too many offerings confusing customers that in the end led to less sales. And I think Xiaomi also knew this, as they started with the SU7 in only 3 configurations: the Standard, the Pro, and the Max. Maybe that was a little tease to Apple. They called their iPhones Pro and Pro Max, as Apple was never able to produce that Apple car, which Xiaomi did. But keeping it simple also made production easy and the choice for the consumer easy as well. As a result, they sold 100,000 units in the first 7 months of production. In comparison, GM to see how it does in the UK and here in the rest of Europe as well, as it did start with the reached so now draw in.
So far, so good.
Because even though they tried everything they can to cover the Tesla success online, the G6 is still...
I took over at that last merge onto the highway simply because I wasn't about to let more people in, which was going to slow down our progress and make us spend another 4 or 5 minutes at that light, because it's a phased light, which gives different directions, different times to go. Anyways, I wasn't going to edit this, but I'm going to edit it down to a reasonable amount, and I'll show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And yeah, hopefully we'll be all educated to the same degree.
While other African countries are struggling to pay their debt and even borrowing more from the West, the member countries of AES are paying off their debts. This is astonishing given the fact that these countries are usually regarded by the rest of the world as the poorest countries in Africa. Not to mention the fact that as a result of their military government, these countries have been isolated by the West. And they are also battling with insecurity on every front. Recently, for example, Burkina Faso revealed that it has paid about 3,000 billion CFA franc, which is approximately $4.79 billion of its national domestic debt. Mali also recently paid 332 million of its internal debt. The question is, how are they doing this? Why can't other African countries do the same? Let's find out. The AES member countries have recently proven that they can survive without Western aid. You see, after the coup occurred in all these countries, there were concerns raised by some Western institutions that Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso will not be able to survive economically and financially. This is because, before the coups, these countries mostly depended on financial aid from Western countries and institutions to run their countries. In fact, according to reports, financial aid constituted more than 50% of the national budget. This meant that all the government expenses and projects depended on financial aid from the West. However, after the coup occurred, the West suspended all the aid. The US, for instance, suspended the annual $500 million it usually gave to Niger. The European Union suspended all financial commitments to Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. And they did this to pressure the military leaders to step down. The general idea was that without the aid, the military government would struggle to run the country economically, and therefore they would be forced to step down. But shockingly, these countries have been surviving. Not only have they engaged in several development projects, these countries also have more than enough to pay their debts. This is remarkable. Burkina Faso, for instance, recently revealed that it has been able to pay $4.79 billion of its domestic debt since the start of 2024.
This holiday, give yourself more convenience with the Kia Sorento. Give yourself more room for passengers and enjoy a little holiday magic.
Okay, I took over there, as you saw,
Holiday bonus this season.
and that's because
Movement that inspires.
just people were not letting us in. And as you saw, that taxi cut us off, which made FSD want to go straight even more.
Thousands of men around the world already love wearing the bearskin hoodie instead of their regular hoodies. Why? Because sure, your average hoodie provides decent insulation to keep you warm. But
All right, I took over again because now it's trying to go back onto the old route, which it already knows is the worst route.
Bearskin hoodie 4.0 with improved insulation tech because we want to offer.
Fortunately, I have to say, folks, you're going to see a lot of
And you may not see this
warts here because FSD in the last, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 weeks has had way more horrible days than it's had good days.
$1 billion of its domestic debt since the start of 2024. This announcement was made by the Prime Minister of Burkina Faso.
I'm hoping to see it flip-flop to like 10 times more good days than bad days.
This has forced the government to turn to the financial market to fund its public investment programs. However, despite this, Burkina Faso has been able to successfully mobilize funds from the regional market.
These people need to be situated before this
here's a
winter
reminder to
hits.
like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Since Traore's tenure, Burkina Faso has been able to raise over 2,083 billion CFA franc and attained investment investor coverage rates as high as 220%. This simply means that despite the challenges faced in Burkina Faso, investors have strong confidence in the country's ability to manage its finances and fulfill its
Big
commitments.
tear in the side of that one.
The funds raised are being channeled into critical investments in infrastructure and basic services. By focusing on these areas, Burkina Faso is laying the groundwork for a self-sustaining economy that can withstand an external shock. This approach is in stark contrast to the debt-dependent strategies often imposed on African countries.
Well, they're collecting everything they can to try to make
perhaps this is the reason why President
somewhat
made the decision to reject financial assistance from the IMF. You see, as of 2023, Africa's debt amounted to about $1.8 trillion.
somewhat of a
But what's interesting is the fact that as high as this figure is, it's
living
actually lower than any world region.
situation.
It would surprise you to know that Germany, a country in Europe, has a debt stock of about $2.9 trillion. World Bank and IMF in order to carry out one developmental project or the other. However, these loans usually come with stringent conditions such as reducing government expenditure on social infrastructure, which end up hurting the citizens of the country. However, like Thomas Sankara, Ibrahim Traore believes that the IMF and the World Bank are agents of economic oppression who keep countries in perpetual debt through their structured operations. It is a well-known fact that once a country becomes indebted to the IMF and the World Bank, it becomes very difficult to break free from that debt, because the economic policies which come with the loans and must be implemented by the government of that country actually hurt the economy rather than improve it.
I'm a slave to superheroes because I don't have powers. But they don't know. I've been secretly hiding mine. Now I'm ready to settle scores and make them bow before the beast.
Fuck off.
It's a superhero world, and I'm just living in it.
Looks like it's my turn.
I'll edit that one out.
IMF and borrowing from the Burkinabe domestic creditors to fund development projects. In this way, the government will be able to comfortably pay the debt without pressure from the economy. This is why Burkina Faso's domestic debt increased and why it has been able to pay 4.79 billion of its domestic debts. This is remarkable and brilliant. Now, as we said at the beginning, Burkina Faso is not the only AES country that has focused on paying off its domestic debt. As we said, Mali has also begun to pay off $332 million of its internal debt. This news was made known by the Malian economic minister, Aluseni Sanu, on Mali state television. The economic minister acknowledged the increasing challenges that Mali faces in recent times with its internal debt. Now, given the fact that Mali is no longer receiving Western aid, it means that Mali is paying off this debt with funds generated internally. As we said at the beginning of this video, this is remarkable and is a testament to the fact that Africa can do without Western aid. The truth is that African countries need to stop receiving financial aid from the West because it has caused more harm than good. It has painted Africa as a needful victim that doesn't have anything to offer and cannot help itself. This is one of the reasons why the West looks down on Africa. Africa needs to break free from this victim mentality and start building itself. And one of the ways to do so is to stop collecting Western aid. The reason why Western countries do not stop aiding Africa is not because they care about Africa, but because aid is a tool for Western exploitation. Think about it. If Western countries stopped aiding African countries, do you think the African people would notice? Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are good examples of this. When Western countries stopped financial support for these countries, it had no impact on the people of Burkina and Mali. You know why? Because the money isn't even arriving. Instead, all those billions of dollars in aid are disappearing into the pockets of greedy African politicians. In Senegal, for example, $4 million was allocated to increase cattle production in the Bakel region. But in the end, only 882 additional cattle were raised. The big question is, where did all that money go? Apparently into the pockets of Senegalese politicians. South Africa is another example. The European Union donated $2 million to stage an AIDS awareness play called Sarafina 2. The money paid for luxury buses for the actors and crew, but the entire audience said the play did little to educate the public about AIDS. In fact, AIDS experts denounced the play as a waste of money, as it consumed about 20% of South Africa's entire AIDS budget. The production was eventually cancelled, but the funds simply vanished. When it comes to Western development aid, cases like this are common in most African countries. The sad thing is that Western countries are aware of this norm. So why does he continue to pump aid funds into the African continent? It's very simple. Their aid is small compared to the aid they receive from Africa, and that is why we say Western aid is an instrument of Western exploitation. According to a 2014 report, Africa receives about $133.7 billion in aid every year, while Western countries extract $191.9 billion from Africa in the form of debt repayments.
Well, it's handling this nasty stretch pretty good.
This means that Africa loses $85 billion every year and is still considered the poorest continent in the world. This is pathetic. But how did the West do that? Well, most of the aid money that Western countries give to Africa comes with conditions. These conditions include allowing foreign multinational companies to set up military bases in Africa, thereby giving them access to African resources to fall back on if there is an actual famine next year. It's a simple but deadly cycle. The same goes for the textile industry. In 1997, Nigeria's textile industry employed 137,000 workers. By 2003, it was just 57,000. Why? Because so-called good Europeans pack up their used clothes in bags and send them to Africa where they are sold at very cheap prices. Africans prefer to buy these European clothes because they are more expensive than African-made clothes. Frankly, African countries need to do better. In fact, development aid has done more harm than good to Africa. It has made Africa look like a helpless continent that can't help itself. But it's time to change that. Africa can survive without foreign aid. Without aid, Africa will be forced to find ways to earn its own income. It will be forced to produce and trade with other African countries. It will be forced to build infrastructure. When there is no free food to sell at low prices, farmers have to go to the fields. Africa will not wither without help, but will emerge stronger. The leaders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have proven this. These countries can survive without Western. During his 30-minute-long speech, the Prime Minister highlighted...
Well, I hope we don't run out of
he said that it is better to be poor in a rich and strong state than to be rich in a
space.
weak state. He said that the current state of poverty in Africa is partly due to attempts to weaken African leaders and destabilize regimes. A strong state is therefore a guarantee of security and stability of institutions. It is also a factor of development. There is no doubt that if the revolution of Thomas Sankara had lasted, Burkina Faso could have been put in the development rail in less than 10 years. However, in order to build a strong state, it is necessary for the government to play out the traps conceived by the dominators to make African states weak and malleable. And, among these traps, there are three that need to be analyzed, which are the so-called respect for human rights, the so-called respect of freedom of speech, and the neo-colonial institutions of our modern state. The Prime Minister further noted that if human rights were not known in Africa, Europeans would not have come to find kingdoms and organized societies with brilliant civilizations and post-colonial African art, which dazzled the Europeans to the point that they stole these works of art, political and economic interests. The so-called freedom of speech and human rights always emphasized by the West are often used to achieve these interests in other countries. President Traoré has, however, made it clear that his country and that of the other member of the AES will not be used to further the interests of the West. It doesn't matter that Western...
We are living in synthetic times. We can do anything, wear anything.
Wow, that school bus didn't stop at those tracks right there.
Real fibers for real performance in the real world.
So this video is all about the safety of the Teslas, showing you all the crash test results and different very rare road cases and how Tesla handles them. And as far as I can see, this is not a Tesla video, but it is definitely showing amazing results.
We can block certain content from showing up in her For You feed. So that's one less thing to worry about. Keyword filters on TikTok.
What you're hearing there is lane departure warnings. So they're testing it with drivers without using safety features. Like full self-driving. Okay, it looks like I'm gonna wait a little longer. I would have expected FSD to get into the right lane. Oh, there we go. It's going to be so much better when it has the large language model interfacing with all the Tesla controls, and you'll be able to say, good time to get into the right lane, and it'll just whoop, go over into the right lane and stick there based on your suggestions. Nicely done. Only a small opening there to get into the right lane for the turn. I don't know what was wrong there. Oh, I didn't see my eyes, so it was saying pay attention. But I was paying attention. You just imagine how many cars are taken away from Tesla for these hundreds of tests. Like, these cars are put through the ringer. Yeah, I saw that car. He was coming into our lane, and FSD did a little beep, 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 like, hey. Side impact, rear impact, rear quarter panel impact. Like, they're doing so many. Like telephone poles hitting right in the center of the vehicle impacts. Like, not telephone poles either. They're made out of concrete and steel. So, but it's simulating the worst of the worst to see how well the occupants are protected. And I'm sorry, like, there's a reason why Teslas are basically marked as the top safety picks all around the world. I knew it. I saw that guy, and so did FSD.
Dear younger me, you've just started Yorkville University.
I don't know when it's going to make the move.
Psychology program. Remember why you're
Why would
here?
you go there?
You want to make a difference.
There's a big stoppage there. You could go all the way to
Let's go to
Oak
the
Ridge
facts.
and turn
You
there.
already know what a Michelin tire is. A tire you can trust.
Why are we
Safe,
turning here?
with real driving comfort and less
Okay,
and less
well,
impact
whatever.
on the environment.